Good afternoon, Muscle Car Corner here at Indy, Mecum. We are looking at some old Pontiacs, me and Hemi Eddie. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing real good, Brad. How's yourself today?
Man, I'm feeling so good today. We're working on the mule, getting that thing sold, and y'all check out an interview from last night Mecum did on car guy interviews. But enough about that. We're talking about this unbelievable 61 Pontiac Royal super stock car. And this car is a really special car. It does have provenance. It's been around a long time. And we're trying to critique some of these cars and look at the restorations on them. They're all amazing. So what do you think about this car here, Eddie?
Okay,
Looking
so
at it.
first I'm Hemi Eddie, right? So what am I doing looking at Pontiacs? But one of the things back in the day in the early Superstock days and all that, you have to appreciate all these cars, what the factory was doing, and trying to make a package that would take these cars down the track so they win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yep.
And we have a line of Pontiacs here we'll be going through, and each of them have their own really cool and really unique packages in them. But like I said, you have to appreciate what the factory was doing back then. Every year was a different year. Every year was a different car.
Yep.
And interior, exterior, and then you have these wild paint schemes with lettering on them that's just phenomenal. I mean, what could you ask for?
This car is just, there's a Tin Indian. No, what was that? Who was that? I thought is that the Tin Indian?
It might have been.
From the home of the Hot Chiefs. It's got the big 8-lug wheels. Take a look at the interior on this. Being a 61, this is like the bubble top version of it. It's a hard top bubble top. Looking at the interior, just crazy. Look at that big 4-speed hanging there, just ready to pull gears and make some tires smoke, But we got looking at brass tacks up under the hood, and some things that I see that, I would have done different, but it is what it is. We look at things closely. Look at the aluminum exhaust manifolds on this car. Is that amazing? I don't recall seeing aluminum exhaust manifolds.
Either that or someone painted the cast iron ones to look like aluminum. One or
They
the
could
other.
have. They could have. But Pontiac was a big player in '61 in drag racing, and it's cool to look at the original big pulley on the generator on this one, an original aluminum intake on it. This has got 2 4s lurking up under that huge air cleaner.
Yes.
But we were looking at getting down to plating on bolts. We were looking at the bolts because he's a perfectionist, I am as well, but using the right plating on bolts is super important. You need a benchmark. You need to find a car that you can benchmark and find out what the correct plating was on.
Right.
The sense is what I see is that this one's got some different ones on this shroud, and the other ones are all this color.
Right.
And then we got some down there that are brighter, and they're not as dull, which this is, I think, the correct finish on, if I'm not mistaken.
I would probably say, this would be more the correct finish. I mean, not being an early Pontiac guy, nothing was ever real bright and cheerful under the hood. I would imagine a duller, flatter gray, a clear zinc back in the day would have probably been more the correct thing. But, sometimes it's hard to recreate that plating. You got to do what you have to do. And, some of the other ones we may look at that have the real shiny stuff, when you look at one car after another, they were probably all restored by the same person.
Yep.
And he probably said, this is what I can get. This is how I can make them. At least the logos are correct and it's the right fastener. But then that becomes the new standard when someone looks at it and says, well, it was done on those 3 cars, so that must be how it is.
True.
And that's sometimes what's happening, because, now we're, over 60 years old that these cars have been out there. It's hard to find a survivor example that can go back and get those original fastener platings and all that. So,
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible, yes.
Now, here again, this is not a lightweight car. This was a Super Duty. One of the first, I think this was the first Super Duty, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And, they didn't have the lightweight front end on them. This is the regular steel.
So I do know they made a Super Duty in 1960.
Did they?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the first year. So this has been the second year for them.
Second year.
Yes.
Gotcha. I didn't know what year the Super Duties did start out.
Yes.
Well, let's take a look at this Catalina here.
Yes. I mean,
This is another one. This is 62 Catalina Super Duty. May go up to $180,000. This is another piece of Pontiac history, drag racing history right here.
yeah.
We started looking at if the cowls were supposed to be painted or are they supposed to be black. The sense is that we've seen 6 that were painted and 2 that were black. So I would say they were supposed to be painted that way.
Yes.
Getting down into the intake, this is not an aluminum intake like that other car we looked at down there. What do you think about this car and what we got under the hood here?
I mean, once again, here we on the other car, we had the 3 black fasteners.
Yep.
These ones are obviously a little different, but it's a different year, right? We go from a 61 to a 62. Were they correct for that way? I'm sure based on what I'm seeing, that probably was became the way that they were done in 62. And you have to remember, when guys were building these cars back in the day, they weren't worried about nuts and bolts. They were worried about making it to their break and trying to put them fasteners on, and they could have cared less. So, when you go into that, I mean, now you're picking the fly crap out of the pepper, if you will, right? But that's what it is. It's always trying to find how do you get better, how do you make sure you're doing it right, and taking that next step to keep on tweaking your work and making it better. These may be 100% correct.
Yeah.
But it's hard to tell. But at least all the logos are correct, and that matters more sometimes.
Yeah.
But a beautiful car.
The color on it's funny how I look at valve covers, and somebody wet sand and buffed these valve covers. They are as slick as can be.
They're smoking hot.
It's all, they came with more of a flat finish, back in the day. We didn't have base coat, clear coats. You can tell that looks like that's a base coat, clear coat paint. But looking at this, the markings is pretty cool. Looking at the overspray that they simulated from back in the day, underneath. All important things. Using the right nuts and bolts. It's funny, I go back to Graveyard Cars when I first started watching it.
Yeah.
I watched how he was so methodical about pictures of original cars. He would spend hours taking pictures of the bolts. He knew that car had never been touched. He looked at that, then he documented it. He put it in a complete book. So he had exactly what bolt came from where, what plating it should have on it. Detail stuff like that is what makes a restoration.
Brad, when I'm doing one of my A864 or 8990s, I actually have bolt boards that I created. They have every bolt, what logo, how long it should be, because sometimes you have a 1-inch thread, sometimes you have a 1.5-inch thread.
Sure.
And depending, like on hood hinges, which thread length you use depends on what location. So I literally have bolt boards that, created them out of a little piece of plywood, drilled them, tapped them, run the bolt in there when I'm taking the car apart, and that way I know it stays in there. And then, of course, all the logos have to be important.
Gotcha.
And even when I'm doing that, even when you have basically a survivor that's never been apart, the factory made mistakes. I have a 65 Plymouth that has, all the bolts that hold this piece on that 65 Plymouth were HTS with a 5/8 washer, except for one. Over here, it was a 3/4-inch washer, HTS bolt, but when I pulled it out to clean the piece of steel, the paint was 3/4 of an inch underneath that. So that's the one that was put there from day one, and that's the one that stayed there when it went back together.
Paying attention to detail is something else,
Really good.
So, it's important on the game of restorations, Well, let's take a look a little further into this. It's got the 8-lug wheels. This is the 62 Super Duty.
I knew that was your motor.
Possibly up to 180. Here again, neat interior.
15 years ago or something.
Wow.
Time's getting away from us, Ed.
These cars had some styling to them. They were super cool.
Wherever it was going?
Not yet. I think I'm going down and moving it next week.
Okay.
Or a week after next.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been.
Rick's all excited.
He didn't say anything about the Alderman car if Travis bought it yet, did he?
Apparently, he had contacted the fella, and it doesn't sound like that fella.
All right, we're back. We're taking a look at another Pontiac Catalina Super Duty 421. This was one of two of the Swiss cheese cars. Just to elaborate on that, they lighten these cars up tremendously. This one may go up to 500,000. This was Mickey Thompson's Super Duty Swiss cheese Catalina. And let me tell you what, it is an amazing car. I think it's so cool in this silver. So Eddie, tell me what you know about this car.
So once again, this is the second one of the two Mickey Thompson cars. I believe they were both silver or gray. One of them on the hood had Mickey Thompson written in big letters. This one has Mickey Thompson written out that I think you may have captured.
Gotcha.
I mean, both exceptional examples of a Super Duty Pontiac. I mean, you look at everything under here, and it almost virtually is flawless. I mean,
it is.
Kind of like some of the restorations I do, they never came this nice from the factory. But when the customer wants something that's going to be stabilized and look awesome for years and years and years, this is what you go through to do them, and kudos on the restoration. It's a very beautiful restoration. You look at everything about the car, from the engine compartment to the overspray to underneath. I mean, the whole frame rails have these big, probably 3 or 4 inch holes cut all the way back, hence the Swiss cheese car and all that. Then you get into the interior and you look at how beautiful the interior is.
It is simply striking.
I mean, and this was a race car with, maybe luxury interior.
Yeah. I don't remember that emblem on that for a Pontiac for some reason. I've never seen that. It almost looks like, the T-Birds have got the thing insignia in the seats. We started looking at brass tacks on this thing. I mean, everything is just amazing. One thing I got to tell you about silver pronounces all the body lines on a vehicle.
Yes.
If you take a look at, if this car was white, you would not see these ridges on it. That's one thing I love about silver. This looks like similar to a Cortez silver. It's strikingly amazing with blue. I mean, this car is just
if
crazy.
You look at everything about it, I mean, you don't see any stripes in the silver whatsoever.
No.
I mean, it is just laid on
laid
really
out
perfectly.
perfect,
Yes.
And we got looking at some moldings and looking at original items. And if you look at this, it's just a little teeny tarnish on it right here. But where do you find a molding like that?
Right.
And we started looking at the correct overspray inside the trunk. It's got the correct jack. It's got the battery in the back, But we started looking at the jams and the lips of the doors and the trunk. And, I mean, this car has been inside its whole life, I think.
Yeah. And while, like I said, it's got the O'Reilly's Ever Start battery in there or whatever like that.
I wouldn't have had that. But.
Well, no, it wouldn't have. I kind of will give a little bit of a break on batteries because they do go bad. We kind of create a little process to, if we have an original battery, to reuse it with a little race battery on the inside of it. But
that's cool.
It helps retain that look.
It does.
While, easy replacement, 10 minutes, have a correct battery in there.
You're doing this much on a car.
Right.
It's a faux pas of mine to make sure you got the right battery in it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's the small things that make the detail of a restoration.
Yep. I will give a little break on a battery though, because once again, easy to replace. It's not like it's buried under the passenger seat like they do today or in the wheel well.
Yeah, but when you spend $200,000-300,000 to restore a car and you leave a O'Reilly's battery, and that still don't cut it mustard for me, but. That's me.
Oh, look at that! Another third pedal there on the floor.
Yeah, you like that.
So yeah,
man, this car is just phenomenal. It may hammer up to 500,000. There's only 2 of these cars in existence, and this one is really done well. I think that whoever gets this car is going to get a piece of Pontiac history. This is a poncho that I really love.
So other than a 67 Pontiac Firebird that was what I call a sentimental restoration because the gentleman and his mom bought the car together, that's the only Pontiac I really worked on. I mean, these are another specialized car, kind of like the A864s, the A990s. They're my specialty.
Yep.
I make sure everything is correct and right and everything, and I mean that's just how this car is done. So very nice job on the car. Hope it brings the big money because I like to see that. I like to see the money stay in the hobby so that we can whoever's restoring the car can create cars with this much beauty and detail, and it costs a lot of money to do that, unfortunately.
I'm sure.
Hopefully the hobby keeps on going high into the stratosphere.
Cars like this will always
Yes.
sell. There's always some big collector. It's a poncho guy that has to have it in his collection,
Well, Brad, the funny thing is back in 2007 and 8, when the economy tanked out, I had one customer that was pretty much unaffected by the economy, and he was buying up cars and shipping them to me. It seems like every 3 or 4 months I was getting another car to do, and he was never, the economy never bothered him. So, the economy doesn't bother people like this that are willing to put $500,000 down. If they want it in their collection, they got to have it, and they'll spend the money.
No doubt. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got one last one we're going to look at real quick here, and this is another 63 Super Duty Swiss cheese car. This is the second one. Now let's talk about this car. Look at the scoop on the hood.
Yes.
What? I never saw that before.
Yep.
Is that an original?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like it was done correctly because the cutout under the hood matches it, where it does and all that. So,
talk to us about this spoiler.
The scoop.
Is that original?
That's not the Ford scoop that a lot of because apparently at some point Pontiac issued a part number for the Ford Super Duty scoop that was backwards on dump trucks and school buses and whatever. But the pictures of this car when Royal had it, that is obviously some kind of an aftermarket scoop that this car was fitted with, and it always stayed with it. So that's what we, restored.
Gotcha. You restored this one as well.
Yeah.
I'm Brad Corner.
Brad Scott Teeman.
Nice to meet you, Scott. Your work is amazing. I've been in the restoration and collision business my whole life, and gosh, it's the way you laid the paint. Whoever your painter is, there's not a blotch in any of these silver cars. That's hard to do.
Hard work, as you well know.
Yeah, you're a perfectionist.
I can't remember which one we did last, whether it was this one or that one. So both of these have been done probably approaching 10 years.
Gotcha.
We did that one right before the 2 Swiss cheese cars.
Oh, really?
That car was neat. Randy Williams, who we did the wagon for and stuff, Randy always knew where that car was. He got that tumor and ended up passing away. So I don't know who told Bobby where it was, but it was in southern Indiana.
Really?
And I was told, his name will come to me, but there was a car club. And the car club bought the car from Royal when they were done with it. And they took it to, wherever in Indiana. They painted it all gold. And then they raced it as a car club together. And then at some point, man, his name's escaping me, he bought the car club out. And then it was setting in he had a real big, long wooden building, and it was all cemented. And that car was sitting in there, literally up on cinder blocks on the suspension. And it was old, but it looked like if you would have put gas in it, you could have started it up and went to the track. It sat there for years like that.
Wow.
And
Just
so
a time
we
capsule.
brought it home. I took it. There was a little car show in Lansing. They had an indoor show for like the first time in 20 years. I took it to Lansing Car Show, with everybody's flipping out, how cool it was. And then we took it home and restored it as Royal had raced it. But the tow bar was with it.
Oh,
It goes
wow.
on those balls and the whole bit.
Wow.
The motor, it was, I think it's been a while now, but seems like it was the original engine and everything to the car still.
Hey, we had a question. Were all the firewalls painted the body color?
In 61 and 2, and 63 they started painting them black.
Okay, gotcha.
And
We wondered that.
63's got splatter paint in the trunk. The 62s and older don't have splatter paint.
Why don't you elaborate a little bit what's in these 421 Super Duty motors?
What about them? What's different?
Yeah, what elaborate the performance? I know the heads were a big deal on these.
Everything was unique to the Super Duty cars because, really they were made to go Daytona 500 racing. which a 62 hardtop car won the Daytona 500 in 62 with Fireball Roberts
Yep.
and Smokey Unick, as we all know. So the engine was certainly up to the task. I mean, obviously they didn't turn them 7,500 or
No.
nothing or more, but I think they turned them probably 6,500 max, and they'd run 500 miles. So the crank was specific, the block was specific.
Was it a steel crank?
Steel crank. The rods were, heavy. They were forged rods, which
Of course.
most Pontiacs were cast. And they had good bolts and stuff. And then they had different cylinder heads as they evolved them.
The compression ratio?
They were 11 and a half, 12
That's what I
to
thought,
1.
yeah.
Without fiddling with them, they're going to fall in that range real easy. I think there was an option in 63. You could get some little pop-up pistons.
Really?
They called them 13 to 1 motors then.
Ooh, boy.
And I think it literally was Mickey Thompson stuff that they put in.
It's funny you bring up Smokey Unick. I grew up in Daytona. I was born and raised, and used to go to his shop. A friend of mine worked for the Proving Grounds in Michigan. He was an engineer, and we had carte blanche in the Smokey shop whenever.
That'd have been cool.
So I got pictures of me when I was a kid in there. The tales he would tell, and to just look at everything he had in there. He had wooden benches made, stacked with all the engines.
I think he worked for all the car
he
companies
did
back
all the
in
caption
day.
of what that motor was and what it did, who he built it for. And he was amazing, man. I used to have lunch with him too. It's good stuff back in the day, a wealth of knowledge.
All Bobby's cars, from what I've seen, just quickly appear to have in the Ford lingo, kind of the medium riser intake. The original, I believe all 62s, the rear carburetor was physically lower than the front. I forget the casting.
And that is.
Okay.
But then in 63, they started with this manifold, even though the engine's obviously angled down like all Pontiacs, the carburetors are level.
Yeah.
That's a 63 manifold.
Okay.
So all Bobby's cars, I believe, have that. And then, like if you look at the 61, it'll have 306 heads, which are small valve, smaller ports. Early 62s would have that 306 head. Late 62s will have these 127s.
Okay.
Bigger valves, bigger ports. And then generally the guys would put the 63 manifold on them, which this car has. And then
It's those exhaust.
one thing I thought was interesting when we did this car, and I don't know what or why, but you'll notice this car has an alternator.
Yes.
So it has a mounting plate for the regulator rather than the bigger generator.
Right.
To me, it's not, as I remember, it was not on the build sheet anywhere. And it made me wonder if there was a kit that you could buy over the counter to put an alternator on a 62. And maybe Royal, maybe did that to this car. Because the wiring, the bracketry, it's all specific to that alternator rather than the generator.
Gotcha.
It was on the car when I took it out of this guy's garage. So I don't doubt that that's something Royal bought over the counter and put on this car. The other neat thing, there was always rumor that this car had an aluminum deck lid on it. It was plain to see when we were restoring it. The doors had never been off the car.
Wow.
But the deck lid had been off from it. But it was the original paint on the inside. So I think what somebody had done, it probably had an aluminum deck lid in 62. And when Royal sold it, they took that deck lid off and folded the original deck lid back on it because the bolts were scarred up and shit. And then sold it.
You know how much that deck lid's worth, don't you?
Well, we had one made, so this car has aluminum deck lid.
Really? We were looking at that silver one over there of the deck lid and the molding on it. We always the silver
Mickey Thompson,
Mickey Thompson car. We always try to look for something that's original on a car. When I was restoring cars, we pronounced something that was original if I could leave it. If it was a Mopar, it was a shaker, try to leave it original. We got down into looking at bolts on these. Now, what's the correct plating? Is this the correct plating on the bolts?
Just zinc stuff,
But I mean, some of them were shinier than others.
Originally, there was a little bit of CAD on these cars, but our plater can't do it. So everything that we do is silver zinc, and this zinc dichromate, and
Gotcha.
black zinc, and then of course gray and black phos. Those are the colors that we can get. So, originally these caps were cadmium because I think that held up to the
Right,
to
right.
the antifreeze better.
Mm-hmm.
But
We looked at one of them has 3 bolts that are black.
on one
on
of
this.
Bobby's cars,
Yeah.
not one I did. I doubt.
No, I don't think
Maybe.
it was.
Maybe.
That's what I was saying to him. I said, you get to do in so many of these cars and all that, and you can only do what you can recreate today.
Right.
So then that becomes the standard.
Sure.
And then that's what everyone goes and says, it had to
whether
be
it's
that way.
exactly right or not,
Right.
Lord only knows.
Exactly right.
60 years later.
you can only make
Right.
the best guess and put that best foot forward,
Yep.
and then that becomes the standard. And
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what, we appreciate you preserving Pontiac history.
Absolutely.
I've always been a Pontiac guy. I've followed Arnie Beswick for so many years, since '68 when I met him.
Different grills that you
Yes.
guys noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
These are way lighter, the Grand
Yep.
Prix grills.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are just tin, and them are die cast.
Gotcha.
So Royal put the GP grills in the thing. The other thing, which apparently somebody caught on this car once upon a time, the way the motor mounts sit on the frame mounts, Royal had moved the holes back about 1 inch.
Wow.
I can't remember if we fixed it or not. I don't honestly remember, but I guess they were protested once upon a time because they had moved the motor back.
Well, just that inch can make a little difference.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't remember if we fixed it or not.
it pushes
Well-
that weight on back.
that's further forward than the one in that one. So,
Wow, it is. It is.
but it should be further back.
Right, yeah.
So yeah.
So who knows? That's what I remember. I remember the frame holes were all
Oh, yeah.
elongated out. Whether we fixed them or not, I don't remember. Too long ago.
Too long ago and too many cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're
And
gonna.
it still looks great. I'm tickled.
Yeah. All the cars do. I mean,
Yeah, Bobby had a nice building for him, and he took care of him.
yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Can't wait to see what happens.
Well, you're gonna be on video on my YouTube channel. I'll give you my
Okay.
channel, and
Okay,
we're
thank
me and Eddie are just critiquing some cars.
Okay.
And Muscle Car Corner here, going to sign out on these amazing Pontiac cars, the Swiss cheese. I hope you all enjoy this video.
What's your channel called then?
We've got the master here that restored these. You can't get any better than that. So we appreciate your time on it, and I just love it. So Muscle Car Corner out. Hope you enjoy. Thanks so much.